How's it going? Welcome to another episode of Lost Like Mike. It's like everybody's on this perpetual being sick. I don't know what it is. I tested negative for COVID. I think it's the flu. I just feel like garbage, kind of sound like garbage. All right. But welcome to another episode of Lost Like Mike. I'm your host, Mike Gonzalez. Thank you for listening, for commenting, subscribing, telling a friend, whatever it is that people do. I am recording this episode on Christmas Eve. It's just how the schedule worked out. But, I mean, happy holidays. And by the time you listen to it, it'll be Christmas or whenever, maybe in 100 years. Like, in just sort of weird time capsule, random, fell on an episode. Oh, what's this YouTube thing that used to be? Anyway, or you might hear it tomorrow. Who knows? But I'm recording this episode after a pretty decent day of pre-Christmas stuff. I think when you have family that has, tangents, new couplings and, branches of the family trees, right? People meet less on Christmas Day and more, or on the actual holiday, and more just randomly all around. Like, some of my family meets on Christmas Eve, and some on Christmas Day, some the day after. Just everybody has these random schedules, but that's the nature of family, I guess. It's just important and feel blessed that you have anybody to go visit at all, I guess. But yeah, I started out this morning. I went to pick up my mom at the senior home. It's a very strange experience because I went to pick her up, and they have, like, first of all, in order to get in, you have to get into this passcode, right? So you wave at somebody and they usually let you in, one of the attendants. So I was waving, and this person, she portrayed herself as a cleaning crew, like a janitorial, because she didn't say two words to me, and she just went right back to mopping. So I spoke to my mom shortly prior, and she said she just had to take her meds and let's go. So I left my phone in the car and I went inside. And of course, the locking mechanism works both ways. So when I got in, I was locked in, and I was going to wait for my mom. And so nobody's in the lobby, no like attendant. But my mom's coming any minute, so I have a seat. Anyway, 20 minutes later, and I'm still sitting there, and I'm like wondering what's going on. I don't know the path to get back to my mom's room, so I'm not gonna just randomly explore a senior home. So I just hung out. But yeah, finally somebody else was trying to get in, so I was like waving at him saying, "No, dude, I'm trapped. Like, I live here." Call the cops or something. No, but then this intercom voice comes on and says, "It's open to the person that's outside." And they just open the door. So I was like, they've been watching me like this whole time, like some sort of, what was that movie with Jim Carrey where he was Truman Show? Good job. High five. And so I snuck out when I got my phone, sat in my car, and called my mom, and made my way. And anyway, after that, but I took a lot of meds this morning, a lot of meds. more than I probably should have, especially with an empty stomach. So I was real nauseous and lightheaded, and it made for an interesting hangout time with the family because I just apparently was saying funny things. So, and I think I heard it at least once. Somebody say, "It's just because he's on drugs." It's like, this is how rumors start, y'all. You know. But yeah, Christmas is weird, and it is a time where you start, missing certain things, because traditions and the things that we like to do, or like to build these traditions, when the people are missing from, it's felt more on those occasions. So I wanted to talk a little bit about I have an uncle. He lives in Colorado, but he had been staying in California. But I hadn't seen him since before I could remember. I was a little kid. But my mom would always tell me that I was one of his favorites. That he would always think of me, talk about me, ask about me. And so maybe a year, maybe a year or two ago, I think it was after so 2 years ago, right out of COVID, when I was graduating from college, I had started to talk to my mom about her side of the family history, because it's very mysterious. I don't know a lot about it. I didn't at the time, especially. And so she suggested that I reach out to my Uncle Vincent. He was kind of the patriarch of their group. My mom has a very troubled history. Like her stories and stuff. I remember when I was a kid, she used to tell me all the time, if anybody ever says that they had it worse than anybody, there's always somebody who's had it worse or different, bad in a different way. So she said, never complain about your life's position because somebody has struggled harder. And for her to say that, and the struggles that she went through, says a lot. So some real deep wisdom, or at least perspective, because the stories that we've talked about are things that I know. So her parents died when she was young. Her mom in a car accident when she was 10, in which she was in the car with her. And her father of, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, a heart attack when she was in her early teens, I think, 10 and 12, 13, something. He basically took care of the family along with her brothers and different things, But mainly him. He was in the army, and he was a war veteran. He was a decorated soldier. And my mom would speak highly of him. His family speaks highly of him. I'm his family, but his kids and, his wife and stuff. So I started reaching out to him and we started corresponding by email. His hands, he suffered from pretty bad arthritis in his hands. Makes me worried because like my hands tense up all the time. But he would he didn't like preferred not to handwrite notes for that reason. So he would dictate his speech to text conversations through email, and he would tell me stories about their upbringing and history. And you know what I mean, if I'm being completely honest, even reading all of the things he sent, it's like you find more questions when you get answers, right? But he also let me know that it was one of his big, he would have liked to have gotten to know me and wanted to have established a relationship. And so about a week ago, my mom received a message that he was sick and that things weren't looking too good. And I was posed with the suggestion to call, right? And I was just, I mean, I have no excuse. To be completely honest, I was just scared to make the call. Like, having never spoken to him before, verbally, like, you know, I didn't know how to do it. And I had to make arrangements with my mom yesterday to pick her up to go to the breakfast that we had today. And so I said, Mom, what time are we going to get together? And then she was like, very short, very, you know, it seemed uncharacteristic, but she was just like, yeah, we'll meet at that time. You pick me up. All right, bye. Love you, bye. And I called her back and I said, hey, like, I didn't get to ask you any, you know, questions. I said, have you talked to Aunt Diane about Uncle Vincent? And she said, well, should I call? And I said, yeah, if you would. I just, you know, want an update. I don't know, you know, kind of in the dark. So she calls, and then a short time after, she calls me back and says that at the time that I was suggesting for her to call, my uncle passed away. And just literally like 15 minutes, and then but see, here's the thing. So my mom said he was like 92 years old. At that point, you won, right? You got family that loves you. You made it. You crossed the finish line. You know, so I'm not sad like I was sad in other situations, you know, with other loss, you know, but I'm disappointed in myself for not manning up and making an awkward phone call and sounding like an idiot, which would have been okay. You should do that. Oh, why are you calling? Or how you doing? stumble through the small talk and just get it done. If that's important to you, and it is important to me, you know. I mean, like, he said it. He regretted not establishing a relationship early on. I get it. It's sometimes that's how life works. My mom says that that's just the way that her family has always been, at least her immediate, between her siblings and so on. And a little bit of that sort of dripped into my personality, where, it's kind of like I talked about when the, Jeff Tate, a singer who I have an opportunity to meet, an opportunity to introduce myself. And it's easier to be a coward and to not do it. It's not coward, it's cowardly, right? Sometimes you just gotta do the uncomfortable thing. And maybe that's the lesson that keeps getting reinforced, is that I have to stop waiting for the other party to meet me halfway. So yeah. It's sad when anybody dies, And there's another aspect in terms of, and it sounds really narcissistic to put it back into how it relates to myself, but because it's not really about that, but he is in his 90s, and I sort of saw him as a benchmark of longevity, like he made healthy choices or whatever he did, to have and he was coherent, and he was on the ball in terms of his clarity of thought and things like that. My mom said that he had just recently, in his 90s, he still had all of his teeth, and just in his 90s was having to switch to artificial teeth, and he was so angry about it. But, in a way that you're angry about having to do something that you didn't have to your whole life because you took care of yourself or whatever. Anyway, I know my voice sounds horrible, and I apologize for that. But yeah, he lived a great life, and he should be celebrated, and it shouldn't be sad. I'm just disappointed, or if I'm sad about anything, it's my own cowardice that I failed to do what I should have done. And it's a cautionary tale, to say the least. We should all, put ourselves in this Christmas season in some awkward situations. If, if at the very least to shake it up. So the other morning, excuse me. The other morning, I walked outside. I'm going to paint a picture of a mystery, and then I'm going to solve it, because I ended up figuring it out, right? But I'm going to paint a picture of a mystery, and so that you can kind of feel where I was at. I opened the front door to head out to work, and my car, it appeared from the door that all my windows were gone. And I have a sunroof. And there was, from where I was standing, I called over my wife and I said, hey, look out there. Does it look like there's any windows? And she's like, oh, here we go. Somebody smashed your windows, man. I said, no, don't say that. So I started walking out. She's like calling after me saying, hey, is there any broken glass? Can you see anything? Right. And the visibility is not that awesome because, and this is one of the clues we're going to put down on the table, it's misty, like drizzly. Okay. So I'm approaching the vehicle and I don't see any broken glass. Now I'm not stupid enough to put valuables out and about in my car, right? I'm not sitting here trying to invite people to rip me off, but there's odds and ends, little indicators on the seats and stuff, like, I think I had like a coat or something, and nothing appeared to be moved. Okay, that's clue number 2, or like suspicious fact number 2. Nothing seemed to be tampered with or missing. So then but all 4 windows are down. Sunroof is all the way open. I come around to the driver's side, I reach for the door handle, and it gives that indicating beep, boop, boop, and you hear the car unlock. So it was still armed and still locked, right? So that's the third weird thing. So I get into the car, and the seats, the dashboard, everything is dry. And it's drizzling out in the world, okay? Which is the 4th weird factoid. Because, right? Now, at first I think, well, somebody had to have gotten in the car because not the glass part of the sunroof, but the shade part of the sunroof. My mind was thinking that you had to manually open that shade part, but out quickly testing it, you don't have to. If you hold the button, it'll open up the sunroof and the shade all by itself. Okay. But, right, that's quite the mystery, right? So no broken glass, doors armed, locked, interior of the car is dry, couldn't have been open all night, but all the windows were wide open. I call my wife while I'm driving to work, and I'm like, something, it just bugs me, this, like, is there some sort of somebody out there with a clone of my key, and they mess with my stuff and then rearm the car? What could it be? All right, well, so she Googled as a phenomenon, like, has anybody ever had this experience? And she's like, all windows down, Honda, what's going on? Anybody ever had this experience? And she fell upon this forum where this guy was talking about something that's not in any of the owner manuals. It's not anywhere in any of the documents related to the vehicle. But if you hold down the unlock button, hold it down, it'll open up all your windows. I said, no, that can't be. So she says, when you get to work, try it out. you know. And I'm telling you, when I tell you this, I really wish there was a camera on me. I get to work, I park the car, lock it up, and then I hold the button down for a second or two. And I thought, this is stupid. I take my finger off. I said, I'm just going to go to work. And I said, no, you know what? Let's give this honest try. So I hold the button down, and I'm like, this is crazy. I'm thinking, right? And I kid you not, all the windows and the sunroof open and come down. Zzz. My mouth drops. I couldn't tell you, man. Blown away, So what I think happened was that morning I had my keys, I put them in my pocket, and then I proceed to go play with my daughter. I sat down in one of those little way too low to the floor chairs. And I guess in the way that I was sitting, I must have put pressure on the key in just the right way to press the button. Because it couldn't have been open all night, because then the interior would have been at least damp with like a layer of morning dew at the least. But like I said, it was dry. So, but yeah, as much as it was a pain in my butt and it drove me crazy, it's kind of fun to have a mystery and then to solve it. If we never found out, I would have been thinking, man, somebody's messing with me. Like, time to look over my shoulder again. You know what I mean? But alas, my normal level of paranoia will suffice. Woof. So, right after last week's podcast, must have been on Sunday, we had a really awesome show. And so awesome that I even told myself I had to tell the story that night. I recorded myself telling the story just because it was such a great, great night. And I'm a little worried that this camera is not plugged in. I might have to, find a stopping point. I don't want to get into a hardcore story and then have everything stop. All right, so I'm going to take a commercial break, and then I'm going to start off with the story about my show. One sec. All right, I'm back. Yeah, with as many times as my equipment just shut down, and I sit here blabbing for 30 minutes before I realized, I figured I might as well take a minute and make sure that we're all plugged in and charging while we do our thing. All right. Where were we? Yeah. So, well, first of all, the night started off like it was gonna not be good. Because when we got there, nobody could care less. We just went up there and bling, bling, bling. We played for a solid hour, and with maybe, 2 people out of the whole place that were kind of into it or whatever, right? But we had to take a break because there was an engineer that came by that was going to be working with the wiring of the place. So he's like, hey, could you take a little bit of an extended break because I need to work on this sound system real quick before y'all get back up. All right, cool. So, we hang back. We're just having a seat, chit-chatting, whatever, having a drink. Next thing you know, it's been over half an hour, and they finish up So, all right, our night's getting a bit abbreviated, and we already know that. So that cuts into our tips, cuts into our, the flow of the night, all that kind of stuff. So while we're getting back to get set up, like to get started, this birthday party group is, they set them in this one table pretty much in front of us. And out the gate, they're like, like, oh, it's so and so's birthday, letting us know before we even got up. And it rings a little bit different when you have nothing in your tip jar and no money's coming your way, not even kind words yet. Like they haven't even clapped, right? And they're like, hey, birthday, give us some love for the birthday. And it's like, it just hits a little different, right? But we get started. We just hit the ground running. We're like, look, we're gonna be up here for a while. Let's just go in with a different attitude. It was pent up because we were sitting there and we're wanting to get back up on stage, right? And so first they come up and they drop a 20, right? The birthday party table. But then they ask for a song that we have no idea. Oh, well, I've never played it in my life, but it's one of those that I've heard a bunch of times, right? It kind of like, imagine me and you and me, da 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 da, right? You probably know the song, So Happy Together, right? So I don't know what possessed me. Maybe because for $20, I didn't want to let them down. Maybe it was a birthday person. I didn't want to. So I said, oh, is it that one song that goes about, right? And when I sang a line of the song, they started singing with me. This, not only that table, but this other table over here started singing the words to the song. And I was kind of doing like kind of a blah, 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 like, because I don't know the words. But I looked it up on my phone and I said, all right, if y'all want to do this, then. So we did an a cappella version of this song, and they clapped along on tambourine, whatever, keeping the beat, and no music because it just wasn't in that moment, right? We just kind of were going for it. But it kind of set the tone for the night. It started changing the vibe because now they're down for whatever. They want to have fun. And they're a little less judgmental because they're thinking, oh, okay, well, they're flying by the seat of their pants or doing whatever they feel like, So we did a lot of sing-along songs. It started, the crowd was just starting to kind of really vibe and it's weird how they overuse or they use these kind of words. And I was talking to Vince about this the other day because I like the idea of, I understand the word vibing, and understand the concept of creating a vibe or like an energy, right? Like vibrations, right? Like being on the same wavelength, all that kind of stuff. But then it sort of becomes like this slang where it's like, you see them on T-shirts or like different places about, having a. Anyway, I digress. I don't mean to get off track, but we're talking about the idea of the word iconic, because kids use that like in such a slang way now, and it's like hard not to come off sounding like an old person, right? Which I don't even like that whole understanding of like old people, because it was one thing when we came out of the 50s, right, where everything was very people wore suit and ties and button down shirts. Everything was so buttoned up and gosh golly gee, and you know what I'm saying, where the contrast from that to the 60s and 70s was so dramatic that when you were old, you were out of touch, you didn't get it. But like, I'm a parent. I and I came from a different time and age, where right now kids are all up and doing this sort of resurgence of like grunge and like 90s um fashion and sensibilities and all this kind of stuff. And it's like always, oh, you whippersnappers, you're looking kind of, all kind of, what are you wearing that t-shirt so loose? And you know what I mean? Like, no, that's not the way it is. Like, that's not, it's silly. We're perpetuating these notions of at one point, and I get it when they're like talking about like Madonna or something, and they're saying, why does she still want to look like a 16-year-old and she's, her age? Well, it's like, I don't know. There's a difference between that lady in Mean Girls, on stage dancing, like on stage in the crowd dancing while her daughter's up on stage, right, trying to live vicariously through her kids, right? There's a difference between that and just somebody finding their fashion sense and their way that they want to look, the way that they've always looked. You know what I mean? I wouldn't expect like my brother, right? He wears bandanas. He's wore them his whole life. Cut off muscle shirts. It's just the way that he dresses. All of a sudden, when he turns 50, he's supposed to, oh, I need to put away my bandanas. I need to put away, you know what I mean? Did Willie Nelson say, I'm going to put away my bandanas and, get my top hat and my monocle? I don't know why I just said that. It's Christmas Eve, right? And I was leaving my brother's party. Well, party. They were having our Christmas breakfast. And I was saying bye to his daughter. And I said, happy birthday. That's an example of how drugged I was this morning. Oh, man. But in my defense, they were talking about my daughter's birthday 2 minutes before, and it hit my ear peripherally. And that's the kind of tangents I miss doing. But where are we talking about? So, all right, back at the really great show. So at one point, I invite the birthday girl up on stage, and I mean, they were all lit, having a good time. Like when I said that they were on edibles and like drinking, and she came on stage with sunglasses and played the tambourine, and it was funny. Like I was making jokes, and the jokes were hitting. It was such a great energy in the place, and we were all having a very good time, and we had a couple songs left, and a guy comes up and he's like, "Hey, y'all play some blues?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, we play blues, man. What are you feeling?" And I mean, if I was in any other kind of mood, this would have freaked me out, but he quick draws out some giant harmonicas out of his pockets. These, I mean, like, can you imagine if somebody just, drew out two things in front of you with like, I happen to have my handy dandy harmonica here. If you're not watching on YouTube, then that didn't make sense until the harmonica blew. But but in this moment, in the energy that was going on, the way that everything was kind of coming together, of course, there was a harmonica player in the audience. And so he's like, mind if I join you? And we said, what key? And he said, I can do it. And he listed out what he had. And I said, we'll do it in A. Let's go. And when I say that the place erupted, it everybody just knew that it was a unique thing that was happening that night. Everybody was singing along. Everybody was was jumping around and having fun, and people were coming on stage, and so naturally somebody else would be coming on stage, and we started into this blues song, and I think his name was Wayne or Wyatt or Wayne, and I was like, let him have it, Wayne. And he just starts going off. And I mean, look, I brought people on stage before that were just kind of like duds, or like bad things happened, or like, I mean, I remember recently there was this one guy, and he was like, I played guitar on stage with, I don't know who he said. I think he said he played on stage with somebody, and he's like, I've been playing for 22 years, whatever. But you never know. He was a little tipsy, so when he got on stage, he was just picking out notes like bing, 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 bong, bong, bing, 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 bong, 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 bong. I mean, he was always in key, but you could tell. And then at the end of it, he was like, I couldn't hear myself. And I'm like, well, everybody else did. And, you know, but even then it was okay because he had fun and the crowd had fun. No big deal. This is the nature of that kind of stuff. But in this case, this dude blew harp like a pro, man. Just, I mean, it was so good. And everybody's going nuts. And it's just, it's hype, 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 right? Now, the interesting thing, before that song started, right, a young lady comes up to the stage and she says, hey, and she proceeds to lay it on me about how tomorrow, the day after the show, they were going to lay her grandfather to rest. And she tells me this whole story about he was a veteran, he fought in the war, that his name and that the family had all come down to go to this funeral, and that she just really wanted something special for him. Now, this is before I did the big blues number, okay? And I also should mention that throughout the night, because it was such a good show, that I may or may not have had more than the usual amount to drink. Just a little bit more. A lot more. So anyway, I drank a lot because I drink a little bit to clear out the throat and whatever. But then once the parties, the different tables start getting it in their mind that they need to buy the band a drink, the next thing you know, there's 2 or 3, there. So at one point there was like 2 birthday parties going on, and I kept saying on the microphone, I remember this everybody's name, and if I can't remember everybody's name, I'm not gonna drink anymore. Right? It was a joke. But and one was like a very interesting Indian name, so it like kept me on my on my P's and Q's, man. It was a very cool name. But don't expect me to remember now because I'm sober. So, and very important fact. But anyway, so I tell her, look, we're going to close out the night with Freebird, right? And a lot of times, in my experience, military folks like that song Dedicated, because it's like the opening lines are like, if I leave here tomorrow, would you still remember me? I must be traveling on now. Too many places I got to see, right? So it's like, it's the thing. And she was right on with it. She was like, I think it'll work. And I'm like, just watch. But in my mind, I'm thinking, I need to remember this dude's story. I need to remember his first and last name. I need to remember everything about this, because if I can't butcher this, I can't call her back up here. I can't be like, hey, what was the name of that dude that y'all are here to see Barry tomorrow? Because, yeah, what was his name? But, so, we get through the blues number, and the place is just, and essentially everything's like in the palm of our hands. we had done a couple numbers before that, and it just hyped up to that point. And then, so we're like, hey man, we got time for one more song before we get into the song. And then I'm telling you, as if I had cue cards, I could not have memorized it any better. I gave this speech about paying tribute to this man and how his entire family was right over there. Can you hold up your drinks? You know, right over there. Next thing you know, I had the birthday party groups, different groups, are all standing up and toasting across, you know, and then everybody's in this great connected sort of sense. And then we played the heck out of the song, and it was a great closer. Everything was just, you know. And here's the other thing. Sunday nights, right after we get finished, I've talked about it on the podcast before. I apologize if I'm going over stuff that I already did before, but it's karaoke night. So when we get done, there's a karaoke that starts right after us. And it's just notorious for being like, they just, you know, have nothing to do with, or, you know, artists or like musicians that are just playing their own songs or playing songs. This is it's an uphill battle. That's all I'm saying. I've talked about it before. It's difficult as a cover band to play before. It just is. But on this particular evening, the whole place was crazy and it was really a lot of fun. So we get done and some of the birthday party people are calling us over saying, listen, could y'all come over, have a drink with us before you leave? And we're like, sure. So we wrap up our stuff, we put it away, and everybody's, you know, shaking hands, bumping fists, whatever, being, you know, very cordial. And they start the karaoke, and there's great singers up, but this time they're coming down, they're shaking my hand, patting me on the back, saying, great job, whatever, and it just feels different, you know. But this guy that's sitting with this table, he says, you want to tell me why I came here to celebrate my sister's birthday? We're supposed to watch some TV, have a beer. You want to tell me why at the end we're all sitting out here crying? And I'm like, I don't know, man, look. And my daughter had dental surgery on Monday. And so on that Sunday night, I was pretty in my feelings as far as anxiety and stuff. And I have to put it somewhere. So I put it into the music to get it, you know, a path out of myself. It's like, you can't just let it fester in you because it'll drive you crazy. So, and then he said the best backhanded compliment that I've gotten in a long time. He said, I just didn't expect all of that. And he points up at the stage to come out of all of this. And he pointed at me. And I said, you know what? I get that a lot. I do. Anyway, pointed at the stage, said I didn't expect all of that from all of this. And he pointed at me, kind of in that circular hand motion of all of this, right? But he said, no disrespect. And as a matter of fact, when I told him that my daughter was having dental surgery, he literally pushed his chair back, held onto his cross on his chest, and said a prayer for my daughter. He didn't care what was going on around. People were talking to him. He sat there and did a good maybe minute and a half prayer for my daughter. So that dude could say whatever he wants about me. I would not care. I would not have any sort of problem with it. Yeah. But I took it in a good way, you know, because that I think I tapped into something that night. I was very loose and very I needed a live show, like I can't even tell you. And here's the thing. I kept saying that night I recorded where I talked about it. And on that recording, I said, you're only as good as your last show. But let me tell you something, okay? And this is nobody's fault. But in my line of work, where you do these, you can't live like that. Because since then, I played Thursday and I played today. And both of those shows were just playing to people that wanted to watch football. And I don't fault them for that. You know what I mean? I don't fault them for that, you know? But at the same time, I'm not going to look for validation in that, in either scenario, really. But I just was comfortable with the show that I put on. Plus, I've been sick. I was sick on Thursday, and I was sick, and it's not COVID, all right? I already took the test. But I think it's the flu. But just in time for Christmas, man. So real quick, a couple of quick little mini stories before we go, and we'll call it a day. And there's no rhyme or reason to any of these stories. I've been meaning to tell. Oh, you know what? I'll tell this one. So we were at church, and my wife says, oh, there's a bolt in the tire. And I said, well, let me get off and look at it. She's like, nope. Because if you take the bolt out of the tire and then air starts coming out all crazy fast, we're going to have a flat tire and then I'm going to have to call roadside assistance. When I'm just going to drive it to, Discount Tire or whatever. Which, now that I'm saying this story out loud, they shouldn't have even been open. Oh no, you know why? Because it was the Christmas Eve service, which was on Friday. See, it's all about context. So they were open, but whatever. And I said, fine, whatever. So I didn't get off to check the bolt that was in the tire. Okay? But we're also supposed to go to have a meal together. Right? So it became this thing about, well, what time do they close? Right? Which also explains why the church service was in the afternoon, because it was a special Christmas Eve. We're all back, all right? We're all on the same page now. So it was on Friday, and it was like at 4 o'clock, we were finishing up church, 4:30. And there's a bolt in the tire. I haven't looked at it yet, but Discount Tire, the tire place, closes at 6. They said there was like an hour and a half wait. And so I said, then why should we go? Because they're not going to see us, right? We had a big old little tiff about it, but I mean, that's what married people do. They disagree. They get past it. It's the way of life. No big deal. But she decides that she's going to go to one of those mom and pop shop places to get the tire fixed or to get it looked at. And so I'm like, hey, Jesus, take the wheel. Just do your thing. Figure it out. I'm going to tap out and let you do your thing, right? So we go to this one place. She had already passed by 2 that were closed. She goes to this other place that's like a mom and pop tire shop. She pulls in, rolls the window down. There's a guy. And she talks to him and says, I got a bolt in my tire. And the guy's like, I'll be right with you, right? Blows her off. Okay. Incidentally, we just got out of church, right? I'm all buttoned up, and not buttoned up really, but my pants are on real tight with like a belt, and like I was trying to present myself in such a way because it's Christmas Eve service. And so now that I sit in the back seat with my daughter, more context. And so you can't see me because of the she has these sun guards on the side of the thing. So these guys at the tire shop don't even know that I'm in the car. And I pulled my belt back and I let it loose, right? Before I make any fat jokes, I'm just trying to establish a certain, set of parameters of what's going on here. So my belt is just loosey-goosey flopping around because I was trying to like sit in the back seat and the chairs are pushed back. It's very uncomfortable, just the way it is for me. I'm a tall guy. And so, and then my wife and I are kind of bickering a little bit because of her deciding to go to this mom and pop shop. And then she says, "What's going on?" She tells me, "Look at this guy. This guy pulled in and they're already helping him. They started talking to him and they're already checking his tires." Right? So here's where the communication kind of broke down. I'm thinking, you know what? Screw this. I want to get off and I want to see this bolt for myself. I want to see what we're dealing with. She thought that I was getting off to find out what's going on, right? And she's a very capable woman of going full 0 to 60. So she's like, "What are you doing?" Right? I'm like, but anyway, in that moment of me wanting to see this bolt and getting past the child lock on this door on the back seat of our SUV, I kick it open to try to get out of the car. And I stumble out of this car, my belt's all flopping everywhere, and I kicked a Coke bottle and it flew over towards these two guys, the workers or whatever. And I mean, I must have looked like a spectacle, but I was like, trying to get my footing, and I bend down, get this bottle, and they're like, "Hey, is everything all right, sir? How can we help you?" I'm like, "No, you're helping my wife over there, and I'm gonna go back in the car, I mean, whatever." But I looked at the little bolt. It was a tiny little bolt. I'm like, I get in the car. So 2 seconds, the guy comes running over and says, "Hey, how can I help you?" And it turned out that the bolt hadn't punctured anything. It was just lodged in the siding of the, you know what I mean? Between the rivets, the grooves. Yeah, the grooves. Right? But isn't that something? Like, I try not to think of it in terms of like it being like a woman versus a man thing. But here is my wife, very timidly, very good-mannered, mild-mannered, saying, "Hello, could you please help me with whatever? Take a look at my tire, whatever." Very nice and gentle, whatever. And then just blowing her off. And we're sitting there 5 minutes, and then I just kick out the car like I was, wanting to start a fight, which but it wasn't. But and then everybody's running over. "Oh, how can we, trying to fix everything." I don't know. Maybe it seemed like it was no money in it. Maybe it was, I don't know what it was, but I just thought it was a unique thing why they completely blew her off. But the second that I get off the car, all of a sudden there's 2, 3 guys that can all come help and get it done. It's just, and I'm not even a greasy wheel. I'm just a stumbling person getting out of the car, and like, they probably thought I threw the bottle at them or something. But anyway, I want everybody to have a Merry Christmas and have a fantastical holiday weekend. I'll be recording my next episode on New Year's Eve, apparently, I think, if it falls in the same way. But be safe. Take care of yourselves. If you have a family member or a friend that you haven't reached out to and you feel like the first time reaching out is going to be weird or awkward, just do it, because that's the only regret that one can have, is that you didn't try. And I can attest to that because, you know, my uncle is no longer with us, and the chance for that conversation is going to be left to those emails. But I am thankful for those emails. And I'm thankful for that correspondence that we had there over the past 2 years. All right. Be safe. Take care, everybody. We're part of something much larger than we are. Never forget that. And send me an email, lostlikemike@gmail.com. Make comments on the YouTube or wherever they allow comments. Take care, everybody, and I'll talk to you soon. All right, peace.